Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki. My Lord, as the supreme directing deity known as Aniruddha, you are the master of the senses and the mind. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you again and again. You are known as Ananta as well as Sankarsana because of your ability to destroy the whole creation by the blazing fire from your mouth. Please repeat. My Lord, as the supreme directing deity, known as Aniruddha, you are the master of the senses and the mind. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you again and again. You are known as Ananta as well as Sankarsana because of your ability to destroy the whole creation by the blazing fire from your mouth. Purport. One page. Please listen carefully. Rishikeshendriyatmane, the mind is the director of the senses, and Lord Aniruddha is the director of the mind. In order to execute devotional service, one has to fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. Therefore, Lord Shiva prays to the controller of the mind, Lord Aniruddha, to be pleased to help him engage his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord. It is stated in Bhagavad-gita 9:34, Manmana bhava mat bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. The mind has to be engaged in meditation on the lotus feet of the Lord in order to execute devotional service. It is also stated in Bhagavad-gita 15:15, Mata smriti jnanam apohanam cha. From the Lord come remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. Thus, if Lord Aniruddha is pleased, he can help the mind engage in the service of the Lord. It is also indicated in this verse that Lord Aniruddha is the sun god by virtue of his expansions. Since the predominating deity of the sun is an expansion of Lord Aniruddha, Lord Shiva also prays to the sun god in this verse. Lord Krishna, by his quadruple expansion, Vasudev, Sankarsana, Pradyumna and Aniruddha, is the Lord of psychic action, namely thinking, feeling, willing and acting. Lord Shiva prays to Lord Aniruddha as the sun god, who is the controlling deity of the external material elements which constitute the construction of the material body. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the word Paramahansa is also another name for the sun god. The sun god is addressed herein as Nibritatmane, which indicates that he always maintains the various planets by manipulating the rainfall. The sun god evaporates water from the seas and oceans and then forms the water into clouds and distributes it over land. When there is sufficient rainfall, grains are produced, and these grains maintain living entities in each and every planet. The sun god is also addressed herein as Purna, or complete, because the rays emanating from the sun have no end. For millions and millions of years since the creation of this universe, the sun god has been supplying heat and light without diminution. The word Paramahansa is applied to persons who are completely cleansed. When there is sufficient sunshine, the mind remains clear and transparent. In other words, the sun god helps the mind of the living entity to become situated on the platform of Paramahansa. Thus Lord Shiva prays to Aniruddha to be kind upon him so that his mind will always be in the perfect state of cleanliness and will be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. Just as fire sterilizes unclean things, the Sun God also keeps everything sterilized, especially dirty things within the mind, thus enabling one to attain elevation to the platform of spiritual understanding. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum lankaite girim yat kripa tamaham bande shigurum dinatarinam paramananda madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Lord Shiva ki. Don't sound convinced. Lord Shiva ki. Jai. Vaishnavanam yata Shambhu. Lord Shiva is Acharya. He is head of a whole sampradaya, Rudra sampradaya. And the other day we discussed sometimes the controversy, the heartache that comes to his followers, who may feel that the followers of Vishnu, of Narayan, are claiming their Lord to be devotee of their Lord. They take offense. So we can say that if they haven't read Srimad Bhagavatam, and they will feel like this. Because here in this chapter, we are getting first-hand proof from Lord Shiva himself, from his own mouth. He is now laying it out as to the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and is discussing the four features through which Lord Vishnu achieves different objectives. We heard of Lord Sankarshan. So Sankarshan means one with the power to destroy. He has immense power. We hear of how at the end of the day of Brahma, well, in the life of Brahma, how the universe becomes destroyed, and that there is a big drought, for hundreds of years. And then the Hare Krishna. Mukularanjana, just your expressions are too much. And then the universe is dry, the sun is scorching, and there's great rains at the end. The whole thing floods. But before that, there's this fire that is coming both from the sun and from the mouth of Anantashesh, who is an expansion of Sankarshan. Then this universe glows like a ball of cow dung. Srimad Bhagavatam, so nicely graphic, right? It's like so he is so powerful that from him a fire can actually torch the whole universe. Today we then hear of Aniruddha. There's four of these expansions. Of course, there are different individuals, but we understand Achintya Bheda, Abheda Tattva, that they are simultaneously one and different from Lord Vishnu. So Krishna, Vishnu, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna and Aniruddha are one personality. So how one, we just mentioned 5 people. So this is this inconceivable simultaneous oneness and difference. Well, the Lord achieves different objectives by expanding himself into different features. And the deity known as Aniruddha is then the master and director of the senses. And the chief sense, as we know, is the mind. In Bhagavatam it is said that the mind has godlike power. I don't know if you have experienced your mind actually having godlike power. The mind has this ability to not let go of things. Like a fan, it just keeps spinning and spinning around. And it likes to magnify problems. I don't know if you've noticed that. Every now and then it's adding a layer of complexity to the issue. It may have started with a look, just the way Lucas looked at me. And then, I go off into my corner, and then it's just like, yeah, I've noticed that he looked at me like that also 2 days ago. And whatever else, and the layers start to pile up. Even at Prasadam, he didn't give me that second kachori I asked for. And it keeps adding. So the problem may be very small. It could be easily solved. Maybe Lucas just has a bad look. Just has a bad resting face or something. I could always ask, what was that look about? But instead, the mind just likes to get into it, and create a whole story. And so one point about it magnifies the problems, and then also it likes to ignore opportunities. We are here especially to take advantage of the opportunity of devotional service. We may find that our mind, even just say the cushions, for example, something small at the end, you can always pick them up and put them away somewhere. The mind will say, well, it's not my service. Or I picked them up the other day. So it ignores different opportunities for making spiritual advancement. Why? Because it tends to be interested in the opportunities to enjoy the body. So instead of taking some austerity, some sacrifice in the service of Krishna, it is ready to accept the opportunities to relax a bit, So therefore the mind is always looked at in the yoga text as the primary entity to be trained, to be controlled, to be guided. And it is ultimately guided by Lord Aniruddha. So we are getting an opportunity for more persons to pray to. I don't know if any of us had considered praying to Aniruddha. No, we don't even think about Aniruddha. We hear of Aniruddha in the Bhagavatam and in Mahabharata. Aniruddha is the grandson of Lord Krishna, is the son of Pradumna. And, this is not that Aniruddha. This one is par excellence, personality of God, supremely powerful, master of the senses and the mind. So yes, as if we don't have enough deities to pray to, there's always been a situation in Krishna consciousness where coming from one God who we generally come to when we have problems, Krishna consciousness just, okay, you can't deal with one, take many. Like this, if you want to go back to Godhead, you have to get the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, the mercy of Lord Nityananda. Okay, what about the mercy of Lord Balaram? The mercy of Shrimati Radharani. Sometimes devotees, if you know, then Advaita Charya, you have to, the Panchatattva. Or do you need the mercy of Jagannath? Or is it Subhadra? Or maybe the Giriraj, yeah. What about Tulsi Maharani? You need the mercy. Mahaprasadam. So we find that because it's about mercy, and because we need bucketfuls of mercy. The Lord is manifesting in so many forms. He is also deputing so many devotees, pure devotees. For us, pick one, pick two, somebody. Pray for mercy. And if you want to really be specific, now here we are understanding, okay, I'm troubled by my senses, I'm troubled by my mind. And generally the trouble is really coming from these two. Because within the mind, all the impressions of previous sense-enjoyable objects is stored. And therefore it is like this hard drive that is full of all the opportunities we missed in enjoyment. Like, have you ever had your mind rewind, like take you back 10 years back or whenever, when you enjoyed some situation, and then it is lamenting that you could have enjoyed it better had you done this or that, you know. It's long gone. But it is full of hankerings and frustrations. And sometimes it just takes you on a journey back into that corner of the things you didn't get, of the people and places that frustrated you. Poor you. Look at me now, I could not do this. So robbing you of the current moment where there's an opportunity to become Krishna conscious, to pick up bhagavatam and hear. So Krishna is saying, Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyajimam namaskuru. In 934, Krishna is telling us, like a teacher, what things you have to do to pass the exam. Always think of me. Become my devotee. Offer your obeisances unto me. Then, what's the result? You will come to me. The mind, however, doesn't always want to agree with this proposal. Always think of Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is kind to give conditions of difficulty in this world so that you think of someone to help you. It is said even the atheists, when the bullets start flying past their heads, they also cry out for somebody. Either their mother or they call out God. So when there's difficulty, we need shelter. Like you stub your toe. Previously it was like, oh God. And then later on you see, once it's like, oh Krishna, you know, you feel good that maybe I'm making some advancement in bhakti. There's some accident that almost happened. Then you hear different cries. Bhakti Nishinga Swami tells a story. He was traveling in East Africa, public transport. And so he dozed off. And in his snooze, he just heard the brakes. And as he was waking up, all he heard was, Jesus! There's all these Christians. You know, East Africa has a lot of Christianity. And immediately they were chanting, Jesus! And they were praying, you know. And so he was saying, wow, all my Krishna consciousness, I would have just died without even remembering Krishna. But maybe, by the mercy of the Christians, I would have gone to see Lord Jesus. Which got me thinking, now we are chanting Krishna's name, you know. So now if at the time of death, someone chants Jesus, does it mean that we go to Jesus Loka? Or do we go to Krishna? You know, it says, Anta kale chamameva smaran mukto kalevaram. Or whatever you are thinking of at the time of death, to that state you will achieve. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam chajat anta kalevaram. these two verses. That then leads to people thinking, okay, if I find a way, just like right at the end, to think of Krishna, then I can beat the system and go to Krishna. But ultimately, Srila Prabhupada, in that purport, he writes that it's not easy to think of Krishna who's supremely pure. One must have practiced in one's life to remember Krishna, and then at the end can remember Krishna. So these two ideas come, that really it's about that end, what you think of. And then the other idea is that it's a sum total of your consciousness. Because in Bhagavatam we hear Kamana Deva Netrena, that according to one's karma and activities in this world, and according to the divine supervision, then Jantu Deho Papataye, the living being is placed in some particular womb to get a body. So I like to lean on the side of, Krishna will bring us to Krishna. We've been chanting his name. Not now that at the end, if we hear something different, then, that's what you heard, therefore you go there. So we need help. We need help from all sides. And the specific help with the mind and the troubles of the senses, here Lord Shiva is revealing in his prayer to Lord Aniruddha, that he is requesting, he is offering obeisances to Lord Aniruddha. And Srila Prabhupada says that this word, Paramahansa, is revealed by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that it also refers to the sun god. That's why we need the acharyas. How would we have come to the sun god? And sun god is Devata. But sun god also is known as a devotee, because in the Gita, the Lord says he spoke the Bhagavad Gita previously to Vivasvan, who spoke it to his son, so Ikshwaku. So the sun god seems to be a devotee, and from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, we understand that here, this Nama Paramahansaya, Paramahansa, of course, is one who is free from any contact with the material nature, who is transcendental. Like the swan, is said, it is very expert also at taking the milk from a mixture of water and milk. So someone who knows the essence of life. So that is a Vaishnava. So the sun god is addressed here as Paramahansa. Also he is addressed as Nibritatmane. The list increases of whom we can take shelter of. Point being, we need help, and we need to take shelter of the devotees, or to take shelter of the Supreme Lord. Why? Because we want to bring our attention back to Krishna. So the sun is purifying everything that it comes in touch with. And he can also purify us. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said, Yachakshu Esha Savita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samasta Sura Muti Ashesha Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sam Britakala Chakro Govinda Madipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. That the sun is the king of all the planets, Raja Samasta. And he is the source of all illumination, Ashesha Teja. And so others see that this sun is powering the whole universe, and therefore they worship that life needs sunlight, and all heat is coming from the sun. Therefore the sun must be all powerful. Therefore, Sundays is the day for worshipping the sun. And we see that the devotees also understanding from Brahma Samhita that the sun is like the eye of the Supreme Lord. So he's also witnessing everything. So when the sun rises, you see people offering obeisances. Narayanaya, because he is the sun, the eye of Narayan. Sometimes we hear of the Son of God. I like to play at these words. Some histories. And we'd heard, Srila Prabhupada had read this Aquarian Gospel. Yeah. And there's some suggestions about how derived from the ancient cultures which were sun worshippers or who followed the solstice, like the birthday of Christ is derived. In the summer solstice, 25 December, that's the summer solstice, at least in the south. I don't know what you guys are doing at that time. You're freezing at that time. So the sun is born. It's like at that time it's at its brightest, and so in this way, suggested that then that birth date was given based on that. Anyway, the Son of God the offspring of God. We know from the Gita that Krishna says that he is the seed-giving father, aham bija pita prada, of all living beings. So definitely everyone is son and daughter of God. So son like that. And also the son of God. So Surya is also the planet, belongs to God. So the Son of God is born, yes. Anyway, those ideas were there. What we like in Krishna consciousness is that Srila Prabhupada, being Samadashi, being merciful Vaishnava, having such broad mind, he was very positive about all acharyas, all teachers, and so never really encouraged that spirit of trying to consider any other history, for example, and accepted the teachings of Christ and Christ as Guru. And that personal testimony helped me, because at some point I was, now thinking, the Son of God, is it really the Son of God as offspring? But we find here now that even if it was the Son of God, the planet or the deity in charge of the sun, still he is worthy of worship. He is part of the parampara and is to be taken shelter of. Here, in relation to the mind, the sun is being highlighted. So, would it mean that if you're having trouble with the mind, just go and sit outside in the sun? Yes, that will help. It is said also for disease, if one is feeling sick, if one is exposed to the sun, Jai Shishi Jagannath Bade Subhadra Ki Jai Shishi Gonitai, then the sun is also very healthy for one who is in disease. So Prabhupada writes here, when there is sufficient sunshine, the mind remains clear and transparent. In other words, the sun god helps the mind of the living entity to become situated on the platform of Paramahansa. I think when I read that line, I saw Dinadal Prabhu's attention kind of peak. I saw him sort of blink. And for me, it kind of stands out. the Sun God can help you become Paramahansa. Well, when there's sufficient sunshine, the mind remains clear and transparent. In other words, the Sun God helps the mind of the living entity to become situated on the platform of Paramahansa. So yes, we just fold our hands to that statement and feel thankful the Sun God will help us become Paramahansa. It is beyond my pay grade to expand more, but here it is. So the example of Lord Shiva is what we want to meditate on. That even though he's such an exalted Vaishnava, an exalted controller, so much power at his disposal, still he is praying to Lord Aniruddha to show us by example. I'm sure Lord Shiva's mind and senses aren't giving him, crazy problems compared to what we may be going through. But still, he is praying to Aniruddha to be kind upon him, that his mind will always stay purified and clean so that he can engage in devotional service. So the impetus for a clear mind, transparent mind, controlled mind is so that that mind can be offered to Krishna. Initially there is an idea of self-realization where one considers themselves becoming free from trouble, some mystic power, and you're just Zen. But that's for you, so it's another form of sense gratification where you are not struggling, you're in control, you can understand the minds of others, and if you're lucky, you have some mystic powers, you can manipulate nature, all centered around the false ego. I will become. I thought like that initially. I thought self-realization, I thought after 6 months, we're going to do some mantras, then we're going to be self-realized. And then only after associating with the devotees, then you hear about the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. And you think, it's not in my hands, this self-realization. Also, this mercy of the Lord is causeless. So it's not really that there's things that once I do 1, 2, 3, 4, then. We're still also now waiting on that causeless mercy. And it keeps coming in different shapes and form. Just to be in the association of devotees is causeless mercy. Because we're sheltered. Without the devotees, then we are sheltered by the mind. And the mind, like we said, is a hard drive full of things we'd rather forget. And when there is no higher engagement, then naturally the mind's proposals become stronger. And without the association which acts like a fence that protects the creeper of devotion, then we run astray. So the desire to purify the mind is so that it can be offered to Krishna. So it's all based on devotion. Devotion is the underlying current. So the sun also, like fire, sterilizes again so that the dirty things within the mind can be removed. In the Ishopanishad, it is said the sun is like apapa vidam. And Prabhupada gives this example that there could be stool and urine somewhere, and when the sun shines there, it purifies that. It takes out the water from there and sterilizes it. Untouched from a distance. So when the mind is purified, then it can be able to think of Krishna. One can become a devotee. One can offer obeisances to the Lord and will come to the Lord. So from the platform of purified mind, we can approach devotional service and we can understand our spiritual life. So, Lord Aniruddha, make a note that you can pray to him directly for the issues of the mind and senses. Shri Aniruddha ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any thoughts? Any comments? Those that are behind. Yes, Lucas. I'm sorry about the look, Lucas.
No problem. Thank you, Prabhu. I was just wondering, maybe detail, but in the translation, Srila Prabhupada says, "My Lord as the supreme directing deity known as Aniruddha." And I was checking that he doesn't say this before in the word by word. What is the meaning of directing deity? Why would he say that?
Yeah, direction means one who guides, who's in charge of. Like at the set of the movie, the ultimate authority is then the director. How all the things should finally function. So, being the directing deity, he's in charge of the psychic activities. Prabhupada had written there about thinking, feeling, willing, and acting. So, though he's the ultimate director, the other day the question was put before Govinda Prabhu, that one can consider that, if Aniruddha is in charge of the situation, then it's Aniruddha's fault. Whatever my mind and senses are doing, he's directing the whole saga. So the director is ultimately just, he's in charge of that department. Like we say, not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Lord. So issues concerning psychic activity are controlled and authorized in that department.
So the director of the mind.
We heard of, or maybe still coming up, about Pradumna. Is okay. It's not read. He's in charge of the intellect. That was yesterday, yeah? Yeah. Today, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Prabhu. Nice, many nice points. There's also this verse in second canto of Bhagavatam, which is a bit sobering, about the sun. By every rising and setting, the sun decreases the duration of life of everyone.
Yes.
Except for one who is remembering the Supreme Lord.
Yeah, Kshayanita. Yes. So as it moves, it is witnessing, and it is also taking away the life. Yeah, day and night. For the devotee, we're supposed to be moving towards Krishna, moving towards our spiritual body. But one who is not involved in devotion is heading towards a divorce with the body, which is death. Yeah. But for the devotee, he reasons ill who says Vaishnavas die. Yeah, because they live in a way that they will continue living eternally. And so, yes, thank you for that verse. Actually, what's the first line of that verse? Ayuharati vai pungsham. Ayuharati vai pungsham. Ayu, it's a lifespan, Ayurveda. So the sun is also witnessing there. Yes, Tamada Prasad Prabhu.
I have a question, but one thing that came to mind when you mentioned about the summer solstice, it's the winter solstice here. And the Christmas, I once heard that when the Catholic Church was promoted, there were all kinds of religions in this area of Europe. And it was not so easy for them to convince the people to take over that religion. And the Germanic folks, they were celebrating the winter solstice with the Christmas trees. They were practically worshipping the sun, that now the days get longer again. Because that's the 0 point, not 0 point, but they get longer. And somehow they use the trees and they put some lamps in order to worship. So then, that's what I heard, the Catholic Church decided to put the day on that day of the birth of Jesus in order for them to... They wanted to take over, to cover their culture in a way, so they can accept Jesus and his teachings better. Because nobody thinks about why do we have Christmas trees, right? But that's the origin of the whole thing. One question I have, sometimes we hear in bhagavatam how there is the Adi-Daivika, the Adi-Atmika, the Adi-Bhautika, and how these are interconnected. You cannot separate them. And then you have, for example, you have the mind, and you have the moon, and you have the moon god, Soma. But then how do we put Aniruddha in that picture? I never understood that point, because there is a moon god, but it's not Aniruddha, and he's apparently, sometimes we hear he's controlling the mind, but then Aniruddha is also there controlling the mind. So how do we put that together? Do you have any clue about this?
Yeah, the point you're making is like the senses are like hyperlinked to some controller, some demigod. So that is, yes, within this material situation. So, the office of IBM in Zurich has its junior managers and whoever in charge of it. But then, there is the international headquarters, maybe in Washington State in America. So one level of control is within the material world, and then when we come to the transcendental situation overall, the big guys, then we come to the Vishnu Tattva, where Aniruddha is. So in my understanding, Chandra is also linked to the mind. So that's the deity in charge of the senses within the material sphere. So I guess, Lucas, Prabhu, it comes back to you, the director, the real, actual, overall director. In Godhead, that department is Aniruddha. Then, as they depute the power of control into the material universe, then the devas are in charge. It was interesting, and I'm going back to the trees, and then the sun that side, like a whole. There was another thing in the Bible when it came to Africa. It was said of Jesus that if you accept him, he will purify your sins, and they will be as white as snow. But the people there didn't deal with snow, so the translation had as white as pulp of coconut. So, the missionaries had to always consider what will, from the known to the unknown, So they had the trees and that side the sun. Interesting. Yeah. Very good preachers. Oh, Gokula Ranjan.
At the end of your lecture, you mentioned that Aniruddha is the master of the senses and the mind, but we also hear that Rishikesh is the master of the senses.
Oh.
So are there two persons responsible, or?
Yeah, so Rishikesha, master of the senses, is a name for the Lord in his role as controller of the senses, master of the senses. So, in today's language, you could say Aniruddha, aka Rishikesha. In that he is being visibly noted as that personality in charge of those psychic actions. Because of Krishna, we say he's a supreme controller. He's supreme in everything. But now we're sort of getting detail as to how Krishna is controlling, and in this case, is controlling the mind and senses through his expansion of Aniruddha. And then we heard also about the moon. So yes, aka Rishikesh.
That's always Vishnu Tattva, it's not Krishna himself.
Yes, because Krishna is primarily Rasaraj, and he's about just enjoying. So a lot of his activities, which was touched upon by Prabhu yesterday, that Vrindavanam Nagachati, Krishna never takes even one step, padam, out of Vrindavan. As soon as he's going to Vrindavan, it starts to do more work. So it's Vasudev expansions, they do more things. Like this thing of Krishna doesn't kill the demons, If it's said at the wrong time, it just kills the whole flavor of the pastime. I've just read how Krishna is killing the demons, and then, no, Krishna never kills the demons. Who knows? It's the Vishnu within Krishna.